Hey, welcome. Trying to get the banner off here. Hang on with me, folks. All right, this is Sam. You can't see me yet, but you'll be able to see me in a second. Let's see how we do this here. Please bear with me as I am all new to this. This is Sam with Mad Radio coming to you live, and John is taking a well-needed break, and we are sending our hellos and love out to him. And as I am working with, let's see here, with technology, I'm just trying to get my face up on the screen here so I can make sure that everything is going to be copacetic and work for us tonight. So you are listening to the award-winning Mad Radio. And as I said, this is Sam. I know you can't see me yet. I am trying to bring us up here and on screen so we can get rid of, let's see, this, so you guys can see me and see our guests that are coming on. So bear with me. Like I said, again, I am trying to work all this technical stuff as John is taking a well-needed break. Yeah, so we've definitely, you're in the right place, Mad Radio. We've got our ticker going. I need to turn the ticker off. Okay, I got the ticker. I got that done. And now I need to get this off. Let's see. Hey! Okay.
There we are.
Okay, so all right. Yay. I figured this out. And so, hey, fine people out there, we've got an amazing show for you tonight. Like John and I always talk about, this time of year is not always great for everybody. Our first responders, especially this year, have been nonstop, and they have been under so much stress with either their departments defunding them, with COVID, with all of the above. And the number one thing that we're hearing out there is it's really difficult to get help. And not only is it difficult to ask for help, but how do you go by asking for help? Do you stay in the department? Do you go outside of your department? And so tonight we have two amazing people on with us from an organization called Three for the Love. And hey, first responders, if you're listening, these guys do an amazing job. I'm going to let them tell how they got started with this. But the important thing as they're speaking that we want you to remember is you're not stuck, okay? If you need help, there are ways to get help. You do not have to stay in this burned out, stressed out, feeling like you're getting crapped on every day. You don't have to stay there. You've got an outlet, and you can visit. See, this is where John's really good at this. You can visit, I did it, abadgeofhonor.com. These guys, their logo, and they are on our website. You click on it, you go right to their website, and you can get in touch. Now, before we start, I have got everything up on the Facebook page. So if you're joining us from Facebook, any comments, any questions that you have, please go ahead and put your comments in. Let us know you're watching. Also, we are live streaming to our YouTube page. So if you are watching us on YouTube, hey, thank you. Keep telling your friends, keep subscribing. We want to grow our YouTube, and that's Mad Radio Texas on YouTube. So you definitely want to check us out there, and we'll be monitoring questions and comments over there. So without further ado, we really want to get into talking about healing. And Brian and Jennifer from Three for the Love are our guests, are my guests this evening, and we're going to dive right in. And Jennifer, why don't you tell everybody watching how this organization came about?
Sure. So thanks for having us on again. We had so much fun last time we were with you guys in the other area, so it was a lot of fun. But 3FTL and Three for the Love came about, and basically what we are is we're a comprehensive mental health treatment program specifically for first responders, so fire, police, EMS. And what we do is we take all of the coordination pieces out of the mental health treatment, and we do all of that for you. So our team consists of a case manager, treatment coordinator, which is what my role is, accountability, which is part of it as well. We have 4 nurse practitioners that work with us for medical management, hormone and blood work. We do all of that, nutrition as well if we need that piece. And then we have 5 trauma counselors that we utilize for individual trauma counseling that have all been vetted, that are culturally competent, that understand the lives of a first responder. And then we also have a group piece, which is what Brian leads. We have, how many are we up to now? 5 group leaders that actually run our group. And really it's a peer support group led by our peer team. And all of that is coordinated for you, so that the only thing the first responder has to do is just show up, get better, do what we say, and really there's light at the end of that tunnel. And because so many times people will go to a counselor or go to a specific area and just not find exactly what they're needing, or put the other person into PTSD or anxiety, depression. They just don't get it. And so that's kind of where we come into play. And all of this stemmed, we've been doing this now for over 2 years, and we've tripled in size since then. We started out with just a little bitty blog, and then it just exploded through that, all because of Brian and I, our direct relationship. Clearly, we're married. Obviously, we're in different rooms right now, but he's upstairs. He's not quarantined, but he's upstairs and I'm down here. So, but all of this kind of stemmed many, many years ago, with, where it all started. We'll kind of take you back to the beginning, and then so we kind of where it all happened. So I'll let Brian kind of share with you his individual experience, and then coupled with my individual experience with what happened with me personally, and then both of us together, and how 3FTL kind of grew into what it is and is still growing into what it is today.
All right. Well, thanks again, Sam, for having us on. It was a blast. I wish Jeff was on here too. We could kind of poke on him some. But first of all, shout out to you guys for a badge. Y'all put on a great workshop that was amazing.
Oh, thank you.
I'm trying to see if I can't figure out how to get where I work involved in trying to do some workshop, maybe with our peer support team, at least get in there and have that experience and learn some more tools to put in our toolboxes. So for sure, that's awesome that y'all did that, and we really enjoyed being invited. So thank you. And talking about Jennifer, this old PTSD, I think we talked about it last time. Was I like to say PTSI, as you guys do too. It's not a disability. I'm not broken and never can be fixed. It's an injury just like any other muscle. I'm still going to have a limp every once in a while, but for the most part, I've recovered. I still have days that are rough. Jennifer can tell you. She plays a big part in trying to help give me a heads up before I come home. The house is going to be a mess. There's centers, as we call them, for my little girl that puts out all her toys everywhere. And we got a new puppy. So that's challenging in itself. But really, I'm going to go back a little bit just to give a little understanding about where I come from and then what Jennifer's dealt with the last 20 years of our life together. And it starts in January of '98 when I became a first responder. We came from Oklahoma. Mm-hmm. And I was a first responder, and you could drive an ambulance as a first responder. You could work on the fire departments as a first responder. And I started back then in '98. And just the surreal thing and funny thing about it is my really good friend that was my roommate, and I've leaned on quite a bit and talked to him, called me yesterday. He's a chief in Denver. And he gave me a call, and we talked just for a little bit. I don't know that he'll watch this. He may watch it. He's a chief now, you just don't know about those guys. But him and I started in '98, in January '98, together working at this ambulance as first responders, as ambulance drivers. We legitimately were ambulance drivers. And my first call, and I'll never forget it, was with a very veteran paramedic. And I got there and they said, "Who are you?" "I'm Brian Hawley." "What are you doing?" "I'm supposed to drive you." I don't really know what I'm doing. Rural county, out in Oklahoma. And I couldn't have been 5-10 minutes and we get a call, and there was a phone in the room that you answered for 911. We didn't have dispatch. We were dispatch. And so you had to forward the phone to the cell phone in the ambulance. And then we went to this call, and it was a fellow firefighter in cardiac arrest. I didn't know the guy. The guy that I was working with knew him very well. And I watched him do everything in his power to save this guy. To this day, I can't tell you if he's still alive or not. Like I said, I didn't really know who he was back then. But that was my induction into the EMS world and how things are going to happen and what we're going to eventually see. In first responder school, I don't even remember what it was. They gave me a card, said you're a first responder. I went on to EMT, got my EMT, and then got my intermediate and my paramedic. And I volunteered for a fire department up there during that whole time. And being in the rural area, we were just outside the Metroplex of Tulsa. We saw a lot of trauma and dealt with a lot of things. And there was a one murder, and I didn't really think this affected me until about a year and a half ago or so. But there was a murder that we ran on, and it stuck with me, and it really was in there, but I didn't think anything of it back then. We were just told when we were in EMT and intermediate, when you would do clinical rides and you would go work somewhere, if you showed any emotion, it was shove it down, just keep it away. And I was part of the problem. After I became a paramedic, I started teaching. I started being a field training officer. I did precepting, and I wouldn't pass people. The majority of them were women, and some of them were guys, and they would cry after a call. And to me, that showed weakness because that's the way I was raised. And I was an ass, is what I was. I didn't know better. Yeah, I still am, but I didn't know better at that time. And then we'll fast forward to November the 3rd of 2014. By this point, so what's that? 16 years in, roughly, coming up on 17 at that time. I've been with my current department, 4 or 5 years. And we ran a pediatric arrest. Up to that point, I had run plenty of them. My fair share, and then some of the other guys' fair shares. And so they never bothered me. No calls really ever bothered me. I might have a nightmare once in a while. I just didn't really know what was going on. And we had this call, and that's kind of my specialty, is the paramedicine side of it. I used to be what I felt really good at it. And I was known to be the one that got the airway on the babies. I was one that everybody looked to say, hey, what do we need to do to make them live? That day I sucked. I couldn't get an airway, and not to brag or boast or anything. It was the first airway I'd ever missed on a baby of 16 years of being a paramedic. I had no idea what was going on. Frustrating call. We get to the hospital. They pronounce the baby. I won't go into all the details. They pronounce the baby, and there was something that I saw in that ER on that child that made me break. And I don't know, on hindsight, I do now, but at that moment, I had no idea what was wrong with me. I couldn't speak. I couldn't breathe. I couldn't stand, nothing. And I'm in this, outside this ER room, trying not to break down in front of the parents who are sobbing over their child that didn't make it. My responsibility. Outside of that ER, the guys that I work with, hey man, what's wrong? What happened? And in my head, I'm talking to them. Evidently, I wasn't saying anything. I had no control. And I think I've talked about this before. I know I did at the work, at that workshop, was the sense of hopelessness. I was completely hopeless. And I had no idea how to fix it, because as paramedics or doctors, nurses, EMTs, and as men, we're fixers. That's what we do. I couldn't fix this. It was very scary. Fast forward, got in the medic. My partner, who to this day is a very, very good friend of mine, and no matter what, he'll be with me till the end. He did a lot of things that he probably shouldn't have done, and he got me back to the station. I had a welcoming crew. The way I think I typed it out to a letter to Jennifer was, it was an intervention that you see on TV. That pissed me off. I wasn't mad or happy about that, because here I am having an emotion. I'm sad. I'm crying. I'm bawling like a baby, snot coming out. They start talking to me. Hey, what's wrong? In my head, I'm telling them everything. Evidently, I'm not speaking. And this is late at night. We're probably approaching midnight, 1 o'clock in the morning. And chaplain's there, my captain, my buddy, and some other firefighters are there. And the looks on their face really scared me, because at that moment, I thought, I'm getting ready to lose my job. My job is at risk here, and I provide for my family. I have a little baby at home. I have another daughter that's 5 years older. And I'm like, man, this is not good. How am I going to go home and explain to my wife, hey, I just got fired or lost my job because I'm a blank? And that was tough, trying to say, how do I explain that? This is what I've known for the majority of my adult life, and that's all she's known for our married life. And now I'm weak and I can't do this. And my children, my oldest, she was still, then put her, I don't know, 4 years old, Jennifer, 5 years old.
I would say five, yeah.
5 or 6. All she knew is her dad was firefighter. Everything's firefighter. They got a song in the books, all that. So she kind of understood, but she didn't. And I started thinking, and they said, "Hey, man, you're gonna have to go home." And I knew if I went home, it wasn't gonna be good. And I started contemplating myself. And Jennifer doesn't like hearing this, and I think at some point all of us had this ideation in our brains. But my thought was, I'm worth a whole lot of money, and I'm smart, and I can get out of this, and she'll get a whole lot of money. She doesn't have to be disappointed in me. My children won't be disappointed. I'll get the firefighter funeral. Everything will be great. And she can move on. She can find somebody better looking than me for sure. And my kids will have a great dad at some point. And if I go home, that's probably what's going to happen. And my battalion chief kept saying, you need to go home to your family. And I finally made sense of words, and I said, if I go home, we're having a funeral. That's bottom line. I didn't have a plan of what was going to happen. And saying those words scared the shit out of me even more than the whole event that was going on, was the fact that I had that in my mind to be able to say that. And to this day, you reflect back on it and you say, man, would I have done it? Could I have done it? Is that still in my brain? Is that something that I'm still capable of? I think it's still there, but I don't think I'm capable of it because I've learned the tools and I've got the tools. I've got the support system. I've got a counselor that I see that's helped me get through it. But all that kind of happened and it really just steamrolled. And I still didn't seek help right away. It took a couple more years, and then after seeing Jennifer, but really her going through that, I think, planted the seed into where Three for the Love is, because she saw me that next morning when I got home from the station. They didn't make me go home. I'm pretty sure we got put out of service. I don't know. I think the statute of limitations ran out up on that. They can't fire me now. But I'm pretty sure we got put out of service because we didn't run another call, and I stayed up talking all night. Got home, collapsed in Jennifer's lap, cried. She'll tell you she doesn't really remember a whole lot about that. I think she blacked out because here I am, her rock that is crumbling. And so that just kind of went on. Well, then fast forward another year, and Jennifer and I were involved at the Oklahoma State University crash where the young lady drove through the parade. And that her and my two children were standing, I don't know, probably 10 feet or sitting actually on the curb, about 10 feet or so, 15 feet, 7 feet, somewhere in there from where she ended up. And that was a very stressful time for Jennifer to go through that. And to me, it was another incident. I went to work, and I pronounced three people in the middle of the street. Well, not in the middle. One was in the middle. Other two were right where we were supposed to be sitting. And I just went and did my job. And then that kind of segue into kind of Jennifer. She wants to talk a little bit, but kind of that event, once I watched her for a year go through what I went through, and then finally understanding that civilians can also get PTSI, is when this was done. This was a done deal. God said, you're doing this no matter what. You're going to go broke. You're going to have nights of crying. You're going to be exhausted. You're going to hate each other.
Don't have all our secrets.
But you're going to love it. And it's going to be the most exhausting thing, but you're going to love it. This is what you're supposed to do no matter what. And so I'll kind of let her kind of go from there, unless anybody's got questions on that. But
yeah, I think one thing that I wanted to point out for our listeners, and we've talked about this before, is that, it doesn't take but one call. You are, you're a veteran firefighter. You've been on numerous calls. Everything's been okay up until this point. And it's this one call that just created this cascade of emotion, of, you use the word helpless. I mean, let's be straight. First responders, we don't identify with the word helpless. We don't identify with shame. We don't identify with the word surrender. And so the fact that you are able to put those those words with the emotion that you felt, it's not something to be ashamed of. And it's important for people listening, and Jennifer, your story that I'm going to have you share is just as impactful, because there's not a lot of, still to this day, even though we know about post-traumatic stress injury, about how the family is affected and how the family is supposed to help a loved one, not necessarily add to the trauma, right? And in the workshop that we did, we put John Edmondson as part of a badge of honor. He helped us put these words to emotions that we felt, thinking about the traumas that we had gone through and how we were feeling right then and there in that workshop. And so thank you so much for sharing that. And also thank you so much for explaining just how fast everything turned for you. Just so fast.
Yeah. And I want to go back. You said that one call, and I know I said it's that one, and you know this, and I'm sure there's listeners out there that know this. It was 16 years
Right.
of trauma. This was just the one that made the bucket dump. This overfilled my bucket. I call it bucket dumping when I go see my counselor, because I still have to go do it every once in a while. I haven't been in a little while, but I still have to bucket dump. But this is one that filled it. And this is one, when I go back and look, and that feeling that I had, I don't ever want to get back to that again. I don't want to feel like that. So I recognize as we go on, hey, I need to go have a chat for a couple of sessions and work some things out. I've done the EMDR, which that's how I know it wasn't that one event. That one event doesn't come up at all. It doesn't. It's that murder when I was an intermediate. Here I am, talking to my buddy yesterday, 22 years as a paramedic. And it's that was one of my key calls. And that was an intermediate before I was a paramedic. And it was still coming up a year ago. And so once we did the EMDR, that's when I figured out it's not the recent call. It's childhood trauma. It's trauma from a girl not liking me. I mean, it could have been anything back in there, but all that just built up, and I hit the done button, and it was over. So, but yeah, so that's one thing everybody needs to understand. It's not one call. Right. You don't get it. That one call that you bust down, that's awesome. You're processing it. If you show emotion and then you go have a nightmare and it's bothering you for a few days, and then the day 5, day 6, day 7, you're good. You filed it. You processed it and put it where it's supposed to go. Day 14, day 17, and you still aren't sleeping, and you still got nightmares and terrors, and you are vividly remembering this thing. It's time to get help. Like, it's done. You are approaching the PTSI. Once you get past those 14 days, you get into 21 days, and we're going to be in trouble. So
yeah, it's important to point out that, having the nightmares, having feelings of guilt, there's lots of things that are normal responses. To trauma. It may be difficult to go to work and, do your job, and that's not abnormal. That is a normal response to trauma. It's when it starts stretching out and you're not finding relief and you're not sleeping, and it's seriously impacting you, your family, your loved ones, your coworkers, that we've got to take a closer look. And, Jen, I want to bring you in here because what Brian went through certainly had an impact on you. And you probably didn't expect to end up with what happened. So why don't you explain?
Well, so I had always chased this dream that I was going to be in trauma, which was a dream that had started like a long time ago. So Brian and I actually were partners. I was an EMT and he was a paramedic for a long time. And he actually kicked me off of his truck because I was a Grim Reaper. And I just shit after shit just kept coming and coming, where I would get to the point where I'd be like, please, God, do not give me another dead person, which after a while, it was like, I think God's trying to tell me something, that I'm not supposed to do this piece of trauma. So we had that like bond, so to speak, with that. But when he came home that day, he's right. I honestly looked at him, and I think I handed our child to him and was like, she's been a little shit. I can't deal with this anymore. And he just lost it. And after that, I had no clue. And all I know is he's yelling, and he finally gets the words out to me of what happened. And I thought, holy crap, how come as a wife, I was not informed or told or prepared that this is coming home to me. And so that's one of the things that we even stress with our spouses too, is there's got to be some communication on, or keywords or buzzwords or something to let them know, do not hand me a screaming child because I just pulled one out of a car. They can't do that. And so that was something for me in my life at that particular time. It was like two wheels, I think, for both of us, just constantly spinning. And his broke a year before mine did, because he was living and breathing the trauma as what the world knows it, as far as what first responders do, and the guts and the gore and all of that. I was living in a traumatic world that was pretty much self-imposed on myself, where I was chasing this dream. I was rising the corporate ladder. I had an extremely high stressful volume job where I was, blowing down all kinds of doors and breaking all kinds of records and basically selling my soul to get to where I was at the moment. Priorities out the wazoo, completely out of place, and just kept spinning and spinning and spinning. And I had dealt with anxiety and depression and an eating disorder even my entire life. And so this chaos that I was living in was kind of feeding all of this. And when Brian had his event, it was more like, oh, more stuff thrown into it. And when we got to Stillwater that afternoon, or that morning, actually, Oklahoma State homecoming is huge. It is 20,000 people rolling into town. Now it's more every single year. And it is a tradition that my family never missed. And we don't get to see each other for Christmas or anything, but we never miss homecoming. And we have our little rituals that we do, and every year that's part of it. And one of them is the parade. And the parade is, 10,000 people along the streets of Stillwater. And we sit at this curb every single year. That's just what we've done. And for 5 years, Brian and I had been married 8 years before we had our 5-year-old, or, at the time she was 5. That's where we were. And that particular morning, we were running late because we had an extra child, and we were running late, and my brother got tired of waiting on us. And so they moved to the other end of the parade. And I remember I was so pissed because we're not in the same spot as we always were. And Brian, looked at me and the girls, and he said, well, let's just move down a little bit and we're going to sit there. And so we have a 5-year-old, and I have a 1-year-old. Well, how old is she? 2, 1, whatever. And you have to remember too, that at this particular time, I'm working deals all the way. that morning on the phone working deals, I'm like, I am on my game, what I thought I was. And we're sitting at this parade, and I've got both of my girls in my lap, and Brian, and these are rows of people behind me. And Brian is behind us because he doesn't want to sit on the curb. And he's actually standing next to an Oklahoma City firefighter, believe it or not, right there. And of course, they've bonded because they talk all the time. Anyways, and I'm sitting there, and all I remember hearing is just a crash. And I turn and I look, and I see a car coming towards us. And I grab my kids, and I have one in my arm. This is what I remember because I know a little bit more about the brain now, but this is my version of it. And I grab her, and I turn around, and I can't find my 5-year-old. And by that time, I still am not processing what is going on. And I turn around, and I still vividly see her screaming behind me. And I grab her, and I run up to where the building is, and Brian is nowhere to be found. And for that split second, I have this quote unquote normal thought is I know exactly where he is he's in the middle of all of this chaos. And there were a couple of things that about that day, we're not going in obviously all of it. And if anybody doesn't know what we're talking about, you can Google the Oklahoma State homecoming parade. Was I just remember both of them crying tremendously, and numerous people coming at me at one time, and just honestly just trying to help me because I can't find Brian. And then you get all the sights and sounds and the helicopters and the ambulances and just one after another coming in, and that did it. And one of the things that I remember the most is when my brother and my dad finally came to get my kids. They said, give her to me, give them to me. And I tell Chris Fields that all the time, that somebody said that to him when he was talking about the interview. And that's exactly what my parents said to me, is give them to me. And the minute I handed over my kids, I collapsed, and some strange lady actually caught me. And I don't remember anything past that. I remember I shook for many hours after that because of now that I know, obviously I went back to school and learned all of this stuff about it, the adrenaline and everything. And that weekend, I literally did everything possible, pills, alcohol, everything that I could imagine, just to try to get the screams out of my head. And I couldn't. And luckily, I had a neighbor who was a military veteran that saw it in me very, very quickly and looked at me and said, "You are not okay. And you're not." And I went to work the next Monday, and I had my very first panic attack ever. Somebody's had the tires, actually, it was the tires screeched. And I turned, and I saw a shoe laying in a parking lot, and I went to my knees faster than I ever had. And luckily, by the grace of God, I was able to dial Brian's phone number, and he was able to talk me off of the ledge because I thought I was literally dying in that parking lot. And after that, we both realized that I probably needed a little bit of help. And that's where I sought out counselor after counselor after counselor after counselor, which was just a madhouse. Was diagnosed with PTSD, and Brian had a few choice words about that because he couldn't believe at that time that a civilian that just had one incident would skyrocket into that, but I did. And I had a mental breakdown, basically. And luckily, I found a counselor that helped me. I had a nurse practitioner that helped me with the medication piece. And I had Brian and another support system to guide me along in that journey. And one of the things that they started to do is they told me to blog about it, or not blog about it, journal about what's going on, because you're supposed to journal. Well, I hate journaling. I don't like writing, but I can type really, really quick. And so when I started typing and I hit publish, it was kind of like this whole weight was lifted off my shoulders, and people came out of the woodworks. It sounds like me, help me. I don't understand this medication. I don't understand all this kind of stuff. And that's where Three for the Love actually started. But I did know, as Brian said before, there was something more that was going to happen. And it was God just knocking on my shoulder and was like, be prepared, have something more, be prepared because I have something more. And when it really hit, and I fought it for a really long time. And when it really hit was when we lost Tony. And he was one of our dear friends. He practically named one of our kids. And he died after retirement by secondary suicide, which is what we call. He just drank and drank because the demons just caught up with him. And I swore at his funeral that I wouldn't, to his wife, I wasn't going to let that happen again. And I didn't know what I was going to do. I still don't know what I'm doing. And every time I tell this story, it was Brian last time that gets emotional, and now I can't.
I could have told it today. I was good today.
I was like, we're good today, but I can't. It's been a long day too. But I promised I wouldn't let somebody else go through not only what Brian went through and what I went through as a spouse on that side, but what he went through. I wasn't going to let that happen again. And so I still wouldn't listen. I still wouldn't do anything. I was like, you know what? We're going to power through this, and God's got to find somebody else because I sure shit don't know what I'm doing. But it happened again, and we almost lost a friend twice and to suicide. And on his way to rehab the second time, I was already building a team. And that's where it blossomed into 3FTL. And that's been our mission and our passion every single day for the last 2 years is that nobody, spouses included, go through the chaos of the mental health world. I'm not going to say you're not going to go through the pain, because I still am shaking, just talking about that kind of stuff, which my counselor's probably watching going, you need to come back in. But it just, everything just kind of mushroomed from there. And I went back to school twice, and Brian kind of jumped on board. And it's just something that we're obviously, we have that connection with for so long, that's what we've built. And it's something that, again, has tripled in size in the last 2 years, only because that mental health world is so broken. I lucked out getting the counselor. I lucked out with my nurse practitioner, who's actually, on our board and a member of our team, who saved my life. I lucked out, and so many people don't have that because the world is broken. I mean, the mental health world is broken. It sucks. EAP is not for trauma. It's great in certain aspects, but it is not for complex trauma. And it's just not. And so we can't promise there's not going to be pain, because there's a lot of it. But there is hope at the end, and both of us are definitely living and breathing it to where there is hope. There is bad days. There's lots of bad days.
Sure.
But,
well, let's get a little bit into the specifics that you guys do. First, Dwight says he's pretty sure you know what you're doing. So I'm pretty sure you know what you're doing too. So sometimes it feels like we're woo, but one of the things that for everybody that I like to point out, if you join late or you're not understanding, is that we've got a husband and wife team here. Jen, you were an EMT, so both first responders, both separately diagnosed with post-traumatic stress, both different triggering events. And so to have a marital unit where both of you guys are dealing with your shit and you have kids. I mean, this
And
is
a new
unique.
puppy.
This is unique for Mad Radio because, you know, we it's usually, you know, the first responder, and then you have the spouse that is not in that line of work, and you have the support. But here we have two people, you know, that are having to navigate themselves, their own triggers and traumas, each other, how to communicate with each other, and recognizing that when they need assistance, they're getting it and understanding that it can't be both of you leaning on each other all the time. Of course you lean on each other, but when it comes to the specific trauma with the PTS and the events, you can't necessarily lean into each other and have those deep discussions. And that's why when you guys created Three for the Love, first of all, I mean, the mission is phenomenal because that's what gets you out of bed every morning. What you shared about your friend, there's no giving up on that mission, and the ability to understand that what he went through, what you all went through, is pervasive in the first responder community. The feeling of being stuck, like, shit, if I say something, you know, I'm going to get fired. I'm going to be put on the rubber gun squad or the rubber hose squad. And this instance, you know, something is going, there's going to be some retribution or retributive action. And that's what we're encouraging people to look outside the departments. The awareness piece has to be brought to the department so they understand what their folks are going to go through. Unfortunately, for many, it's an inevitability because our brains were not meant to deal with the level of trauma for such a long period of time. That's science, right? Yeah. So when one of the things that you guys do best is, Brian, you have the peer support that you run. Jen, it seems like you run everything else. It's like this laundry list.
Yeah.
And but you guys work together so well, and you don't step on each other. You know, it's support all the way. And your ability to say, hey, as a first responder, you're coming through our doors. This is the intake process. It's not going to be easy. You're going to have to do a whole lot of things. You're going to have to move stuff around. Life is already chaotic, you know, because they're experiencing stuff that they don't understand, but it's going to get a little bit more right now. But hey, we got you. Mm-hmm. Okay. Just put one foot in front of the other.
That's right.
We got you here. And one of the things that I want to talk about and kind of dive in is the nutrition piece. Because we have all heard about, hey, doc, I got this, and this. Oh, you have PTS. Here's a pill. You know, here's a script. Don't drink. You know, kind of the basic stuff. EMDR, more in depth, but there's still sometimes to manage massive anxiety. There could be prescriptions that go along with that. We know prescriptions are okay if you need it. Not saying it's bad, but if you don't have that nutrition piece to assist with the prescription piece, lots of things can go sideways. Hey guys, if you love your testosterone, you better listen up right now. That's where you want to key in. Because medication can do like wacky things. And we all know from processing the stress that comes with post-traumatic stress, health, fitness, movement, mindfulness. We have practices that come with the ability to handle the stress on a daily that move us through the trauma. nutrition's got to be right there. You can't do dinner of champions like I did, which was a king size Snickers bar and a Coke. That doesn't work. I mean, every once in a while, but when you're sitting in your car or in the bus, and I don't mean school bus, I mean, that's why I call it ambulance. It's, in your rig, you've got to look at where you are. So when this gets a hit, your whole body is able to assist you in that. So please talk about the nutrition.
So one of the things that we always go back to, hydrate with water, number one. Even when we're doing, the debriefs or the mass casualty debriefings that we do, we always bring, one of the things that I always ask before Jester and I get there, which is our therapy dog, is, is there going to be water? Is there going to be snacks? Is there going to be, healthy food in that place? Because that's the one thing that we forget to do is drink water and eat. And so even when people come in and we're doing the intake process with them, they're like, if you're extremely depressed, you don't want to eat. Well, I'm like, well, you still have to eat. I don't care if it's a smoothie from Smoothie King every single day, you have to eat. And one of the things that we try, a power bar, something, just get something in your system and keep hydrated, because your brain runs on fuel just like everything else, and you're not going to be able to make those rational decisions without that particular piece. If you need a nutritionist, then we will refer you to a nutritionist. If you really want to lose weight, we have a weight loss program that's part of the nurse practitioner office that we work in that can actually do that and help you with that healthy. But you have to absolutely eat. And like you said, I mean, sometimes, yes, that's a Snickers bar. I'm guilty of that too. But now there's somebody at our office that part of her main jobs is to be like, did you eat lunch today? Because you just blow right over it. You forget. And I'm like, oh yeah, that's why. So why I'm so angry is you have to make sure that you spend that time. Firefighters are notorious for not missing a meal at all. And so that's one of the things where I'm going to go back to that piece. You eat breakfast every morning. And even when he comes home, I'm like, just grab a protein bar. And he's like making a 4-course meal for breakfast. And I'm like, but that's what they do. And so it's something that you have to plan for, especially for PD or, because you're in and out. You can make healthy meals. It just takes preparation. It just takes that little bit of piece to prepare and to plan. And it's a whole change in the way you're doing something.
I think Brian just left to start cooking again.
I guess he did.
Yeah, there he is.
My fan was getting cold up here.
Oh.
He's an attic. Ha ha. So
yeah.
That is something it's huge. And again, when we're doing those debriefings as well, it's I'll slide some water across the table, and a lot of people just pick it up and just start drinking it without even knowing what you're doing. I didn't realize that when I was in my full-fledged adrenaline come down. Mine was alcohol after alcohol after alcohol, just because I didn't know any better. And it should have been water, food, because I didn't eat for 2 days. And but that's something that you just kind of have to fake it a little bit, even if you don't like the taste. You have to eat. And again, it's a holistic approach. And when you said earlier, you can't just take a pill and you can't just do that. We've had lots of people that have come to 3FTL that are like, I just want my testosterone checked. And I'm like, well, here's the referral, but that's only one little piece of it. Or I need some anxiety meds. And I'm like, okay, well, it's not what we do. It's the whole thing. So,
Right.
Referral, but you got to do the whole piece in order for it to completely work, because each thing works on different parts, nutrition included, of your brain. It's one big puzzle, and you have to hit every single piece.
Right. Now you guys do blood work, so you're able to give the first responder a comprehensive look at,
Yes.
when they say, oh yeah, I've been eating, or I've been doing this and that. It's like, oh yes, here it is. This is what we know is going on. But the what I find, with the nutrition stuff that I go to, very skilled practitioners, like, oh, well, that explains why this is happening.
Yeah.
And when you you have this puzzle and the pieces are all over the place, but then you can start putting them together. You know, as a first responder, what do we do? You know, in my line of work, it was solve puzzles, solve mysteries, you know, investigate. So if you can give a first responder that puzzle piece that fits, like, oh, well, that's why I've been feeling so down.
Yes.
It's like, when was the last time you were outside? Are you working midnights? That's a big one.
Good one. Mm-hmm.
Vitamin D.
Vitamin D is huge. Testosterone is huge. And we talked about that last time. But just getting outside. And we tell people, like, I don't care if you go outside and walk down the block. It doesn't matter to us. Just get out and do something and move your body a little bit. Even if you are, quote unquote, debilitated, or you're on an injury, or you're on a work injury, you can still do something. You just have to change your norm. Everybody's norm has changed in the last year. Everybody's. And so if you were a CrossFit person and now you got a bad back, then go swim. You can do something. You don't have to just be debilitated. Like, you can find something to do. And it's just a matter of up here and changing it, and you can do it. You absolutely can do it.
Yeah, and it's almost,
exercise is one of the things.
Yeah, you guys give people like this. I'll call it like a buffet. Like, all right, this doesn't work for you or attract you. Do this, but you gotta pick from the buffet. And Brian, you know, part of that buffet is group. You got to do the peer support. And, you know, let's touch on this, because I remember my debrief after 9/11. We're all sitting in a room, sitting in a circle, and
singing Kumbaya.
Yeah, well, it's more like, why are we here? What are we gonna do? Who are these people? Do we have to say, you know? And it wasn't. We weren't really given a choice. You had to share, which ended up being good because it allowed us to get the emotion out. But it's not easy. And so what do you say to a first responder that's like, dang, if there's group involved, no way.
We put it in the contract.
Oh, well, there you go. You know, when before you sign. Yeah. But come on, even though it's in the contract, I mean, yes, we were there. We want to get better. You know, Brian, they're in there. And yeah.
It's and I think I said this before, and of all the groups that I've led, there's the guy that's the talker that wants to get out there. He wants to tell everybody. He is that one that you're like, okay, he's going to help us in the future. He is going to be somebody for sure. Then you got the couple over there, and I know y'all see me like this. Honestly, my fan is on. It's freezing up here. But they're always sitting there closed off, and they're completely closed off. And they're not wanting to share anything. They're not wanting to give any, hey, you know what, this has worked for me, or these are things that I've done. They're just closed off. And so I tell them at the beginning and in the group, you know, there's some rules that are in place that we have to follow. And I lay out the rules, and that this is confidential. We're not going to share any of this information, because sometimes some of the guys in the group work at the same department. And so far everybody's been really good about not sharing that private time that we have with each other. But I tell them another one of the rules, and I said, number one thing is you have to be vulnerable. If you cannot be vulnerable, then you might as well leave and collect a check and be done, because you're not going to heal unless you are vulnerable. And vulnerability is the number one thing that helps us get through everything. Because like you said, Sam, you sat in that circle of CISM. It was CISD way back in the day, and it may have been CISM back then, but I did CISD. And just like you said, you share something, you feel a little better. The benefit of firefighters is after a bad call, I go back to the kitchen table where we solve all the problems with pancakes and syrup. And I get to sit there and talk to my brothers and say, Hey man, how do you think that just went?
Right.
Dude, you sucked. Okay. And we talk it out and hash it out. Police department, any police officer,
We don't have that.
you're done. And guess what? Now you got to go deal with the husband that's kicking the wife out. And then you're done with that. Hey, this dog's barking, but I don't want contact. I don't want them to know that I'm dealing with that. You don't have anybody to share it with. And then you get to share it with your bottle of your favorite whiskey or scotch or whatever else the next day. And so when I get the cops and the firefighters in the room, hey man, we're all in this together. We all got the same problems. We're all going to be vulnerable. We're going to share. I'm not going to push on you. I'm not going to make you do something you don't want to, but I'm going to make you do it. And they always look at me like, what? Listen, I'm going to give you that opportunity. But once that opportunity is gone, I'm going to help you come to the edge. And I'm going to give you that nudge that you need to get through this little uncomfortable, I'm embarrassed, whatever. I always share first in every peer program that I've led or peer support group that I've led. I always lead first. There are things that I say in there Jennifer will never know. And there are things about me that she will never know. My own parents, nobody will know. These are private to me. My counselor knows, and then this group of guys will know. And I share things with these groups, and I let them know, here it is. I'm as vulnerable as you can get. And I know the first time we met, I told you, you can ask me anything except where I work. That's the only thing I can't tell you, but you can ask me any question. And you did. But I lead it, and that seems to break that ice for them. And it makes it easier for them to say, man, you kind of screwed up. I think I'll share mine. And then I look at them, I'm like, gosh dang, man, you're screwed up. By the time we made it around the table or the room or however, we don't have to sit in a circle. By the time we've made it around, everybody's looking at the next guy. Man, he's working. I'm glad I don't have what he has. Right. And I think Jeff has said that too. Mm-hmm. I'm telling you, when I leave a room, I'm like, whew, I lucked out. Like, and I know they're saying the same thing, but that's the best thing about the way Jennifer designed this was she didn't give me a format and say, here's what you have to do. Here's what you have to cover. This is very unconventional. We may talk about one thing this day, and then the next week when we meet, we found something new because it happened between those two meetings. Mm-hmm. And it's like, oh, you know what? We're going to touch on that one now. I know y'all want to talk about this, but we're going to talk about this now because he needs our help, and we need to figure out how can we help him get through whatever he's dealing with. Yeah. And so a lot of those things are just being unconventional. I've been to all of the classes you can go to. I think there's a couple more that just popped up I can go to lead. And it's funny because I go in and I see all the way that CISM is. And I'm not going to bash CISM, but I don't think it's peer support. And I think that's where we're missing it. If we could somehow design, and we're getting close to designing something that touches a little bit with some of the good techniques and the good stuff that CISM has to offer and the good stuff that peer support has to offer, we can meld all of that together, it'll be out of ballpark. Awesome. And it'll change the game. You just have to figure out how to do that and how do you implement it everywhere.
Sure. Yeah. Well, that's always the big thing. You come up with the great ideas, you see that they work because you use them. And then it's like, how do we get it to departments? And then there's money, and that's a whole nother show.
Money.
Yeah.
What is on average, the first responder that is coming to you for assistance, on average, what's the time that they're in the program?
So it's a commitment of 8 weeks. So it's a minimum of 8 sessions with a trauma counselor and 8 sessions with me and a nurse practitioner weekly. But I would say 95% go further than that. So, I mean, you're dealing, by that time, we loosen the reins, and I loosen the nagging wife mom piece after usually about 8 weeks, to where I'm only a pain in their ass like every 2 weeks, just to make sure, because the accountability
Out of love, of course.
all out of love. And Brian knows, I'm like, oh my God, these guys are, and then you're like, but you love them. And I'm like, I know, I love them so much, but they're driving me crazy. But, so it's a minimum of 8, and that just it helps them through the, oh, I can't do this because this, or the big one is, I feel so much better. I think I'm just going to stop. I'm going to stop my meds. I'm going to stop going to counseling. I'm going to stop group. Jennifer's not going to, blah, blah, blah. Well, in that piece, there is no Jennifer on that side. But after 8 weeks, it's now a routine. And so that is where they continue. And sometimes then it's up to the counselors and the first responder if they now can go every other week to counseling. And so that is that's something that's, as part of the treatment team, all of us decide. But we started off with 4 when we first started, a minimum of 4 weeks, and that was way too short. And then a minimum of 10. So 8's kind of the sweet spot. Sure. But even with the groups, and Brian can tell you, he's probably taking care of one of the kids or the puppy, is the group only is required to meet for 6 weeks. Mm-hmm. And however, every one of them, I think but one, has gone on and continued, because it is such a bond that they form together. And again, it's like Brian said, it's nothing like, there's certain topics that we want them to hit on, but it goes wherever that particular group needs at that particular moment.
Sure.
And every person in that group is part of 3FTL. And it used to be, we just are redesigning it in January. It used to be 8 people per group leader, and now we have so many that we're cutting it now to 4. So there'll be 4 people and a member, a group leader, just so that we can crank them out a little bit quicker. But it closes, and so no new person's going to come in on week 3. It's going to be consistent across the board, and so that again is different. It's just an unconventional way of doing it.
Sure. And the most important thing is that you're allowing, with the help that these first responders have sought out with you guys, you're allowing them to continue in their job. You're providing them all of the tactics, the tools, the strategies, a lot of the stuff that we talk about in the Badge of Honor workshops. You're giving that to them so that they have, when the stress comes up on the call, the breathing, the grounding, the, hand on the heart, that the whole thing, that this is not like what I went through, where I got to a point where I couldn't function on the job anymore. And that it was not only dangerous for me, but it was dangerous for the people that I was assigned to protect.
Yes.
So I was out of the job and receiving the help, and then went back to the job, different job, not same department, went from the feds to the local. But the whole key here, and what I want people to understand, is this is not you being removed from your job to say you need to go get help. This is a place, 3 for the Love is a place where you as a first responder will get all the support you need to continue to do what you do on a daily basis. Just be a better you. Yes. And then it translates into being a better partner, into a better spouse, the whole family dynamic. And, you guys just rock it. Every I is dotted, every T is crossed. You're innovators, because, you can't stay like this the whole time. It's like, hey, we got this therapy protocol. Even therapies have, done this and gotten bigger, and some aren't used anymore. Some are deemed ineffective. And so if we can talk about how to be the best first responder you can be, you just got some like little dents in your armor, let's say.
Just a
And
bump.
yeah, and that's it. And so, I can't thank you guys enough for coming on. The beautiful thing about doing it this way now, it's not like, oh, we have to cut off right this moment. No. So for first responders or for people, I mean, we have an audience all over. If you're a first responder, if you are a spouse of a first responder, if you love first responders, if you have a roommate that's a first responder, tell them about 3 for the Love. Jennifer, Brian, how does somebody reach out to you? What is the best way?
So they can go on the website, which I see down below, and that's where all of our information is. So when my phone number is actually on there, that's my cell phone number. I tell people to text me because I'm in and out of clinic. And so I can, because we do run first responder clinic every Monday and Tuesday and half a day on Thursday for this. And so if I don't answer right away, then, I usually get back to them within a couple of hours, but we move very, very quick. And so when somebody reaches out to us, they see me, they see a nurse practitioner, they see a counselor, and they're immediately assigned to a group within a week. So that's fairly quick, and they start, rolling. The spouses have the same piece. There's a group leader. Her name is Erica Anderson. She's on our website as well. She's the wife of the first responder, and she leads the spouse group. And everything is available for the spouses minus the pain in the assness, which would be me, or the case manager piece, which would be me. I still can design their treatment, but I just can't follow them like I do the individual first responder. All of that is on our website, and they can call or text. If they're in crisis, they can call, and we do crisis stabilization as well. We can do residential treatment. We can do intensive outpatient. I mean, it's the jack of all trades.
Sure.
The best way to get a hold of us is through, they can email me. That's on there as well.
Okay, so 3forthelove.com is the way to start your journey of healing. You are not alone in this. So many people have walked in your shoes. Please don't think you're that unique one, because you're not.
Special.
We love you, but you're not special.
Hey, that was another thing before the dog and the kid scratched on the door. That was the thing. One of the rules is that we're not unique in that group. I tell them all the time, and I almost got my ass whooped one day because I told a guy he wasn't unique. And I said, you're not. We all have it. Listen to the stories, and then you'll understand you're not the only one.
Yeah.
So I love that you said that. That's one of those things when I say it, everybody looks at me like, well, man, you got a set of nuts on you. What are you talking about?
You know what though, Brian? They should already hear it, because I tell them, I'm like, you are not. You may think that you are a superhuman, or no, how do I say it? I always tell them, I'm like, you're not a. What do I say? I don't want to say hero, because you are somewhat a hero, but you're not immortal. You're not like the superheroes on TV that the society depicts you to be, because you can break and you will break. And so take that piece out, that you aren't unbreakable, because you are. Yeah. So they hear it from me too.
Well, that's a great place to wrap it up. So thank you guys so much. Have a very blessed and happy new year. Again, for everybody that is listening, you are not alone. Please reach out for 3forthelove.com if you're in need. We totally get that this is a tough time for a lot of people out there, and this is outside of your department. So confidentiality is number one. Mm-hmm. The most important thing is that you deserve to have the care that you as a first responder deserve. That didn't sound right, but you deserve to have it.
Better. There is a better way.
Exactly.
And that's another thing, as we're ending and saying our byes. There's people probably outside of the state of Texas that listen to this, and you can contact Jennifer between the two of us, we reach enough people, and we have met enough people like you, Sam, and like John, and Chris Fields. I mean, we have met so many people that we probably know somebody in your state that if we can't personally help you, we can get you in the direction and contact somebody that can help and guide where you need to get this help. And we've done that. We've helped in other states. So it may not move as fast, but we'll definitely be there to listen and guide you and at least give you and hand you to somebody that we would trust with ourselves.
Amen to that. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Well, guys, again, it's been a pleasure, and we will be seeing you next year.
Yes,
for
absolutely.
sure.
All right.
We're on again next Wednesday.
Thank you all again so much, and Happy New Year, and God bless you for what you do.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you.
Thanks, Sam.
You bet.
Bye.
Take care. All right, everybody. That was Brian and Jen from 3 for the Love. Again, you can go to 3forthelove.com. It's still up on screen, and reach out to them if you are in need. Now, we put on Mad Radio. It's on every Wednesday, and a great way to support. We are growing our audience on YouTube. It's our newest platform. And we ask, hey, if you're listening to this and watching this on Facebook right now, if you wouldn't mind jumping over to our YouTube page, which again is Mad Radio Texas, hit the subscribe button. There's lots of cool things you can do with YouTube that we want to be able to bring you. And we need the subscribers for that. So if you wouldn't mind doing that, that would be super awesome. Another way to support the show and so we can continue to do what we do is to, after we're off the air, you can scroll to the top of our Facebook page. And up there, we have books that you can purchase, and you can click on it, buy it right through Facebook. That's a great way to support. And you guys heard a lot about us talking about A Badge of Honor. That is the organization that myself, that John, that Jeff Freeman, that John Edmondson, we run. And every bit of the support and the money that we raise through Mad Radio goes into the workshop so that we can make a difference in the lives of our first responders and continue to do that. Getting out into the departments, getting in front of first responders, helping them to understand they are absolutely not alone and what they're going through is normal. And the way you do that is by visiting abadgeofhonor.com. Put it up on the screen here. Click on Mad Radio, and there's a donate button. You can do that. So appreciate the support there. And we've got a huge project that we are supporting, and it's called PTSD 911. It is a documentary that desperately needs to be made so that more people understand what it's like to be a first responder and dealing with the traumas that we are exposed to throughout our careers. Jeff, Jen and Brian did a great job explaining tonight the impact and the toll, and that it only takes that one to make your bucket overflow. And so as we leave you tonight, to all of our men and women out there in uniform, holding the line here at home and abroad, we love you. We are continuing to pray for you. You are not alone. It's okay not to be okay. We just don't want you to stay there. And I'm going to play the trailer for PTSD 911. Again, let's work together. Let's get this made. Until next week, which is next year, people, 2021. Decide next year that it is your time. Decide now that you're going to get the help. And much love to all of you here. So appreciate the support as I navigated all this craziness tonight. Until next time, God bless you all. Thank you for another wonderful year of Mad Radio. Thank you for your continued support. Much love. Bye-bye.
After working for 20 plus years as a police officer, not having backup is kind of scary. While I was trying to heal from the traumas that had put me in the position that I was in, I suddenly lost all the support of all the guys I worked with.
Just because we don't see it doesn't mean that we don't picture it in our head. I never thought that I would have to deal with that type of call, and I was not prepared.
I remember the moment I was like, okay, I was up all night. It was just trauma after trauma after trauma. You know, the novelty of the job wore off really quick.
They didn't offer any help. They said I needed to see a psychiatrist, that there was probably nothing wrong with me, that I was just being a baby about it.
I couldn't think of how to get help without ruining my job.
I know personally, on many occasions, that a police officer can go in and ask for help, and the chief will fire him.
They forced me to resign because they just could not understand how that could have affected me, since I was just a dispatcher.
I just thought to myself, if I can't do this job, what can I do? What else? I put all the eggs in this basket. Who am I if I'm not a firefighter?
I have, 4 years till retirement, and I gotta be okay, and I gotta make it.